Today, I'm going to share with you how I manifested my dream career, home, and life. I didn't have the happy, carefree childhoods that most people look back on with fondness. I lived in a constant state of depression and anxiety, in a fog of apprehension and dread. I either felt helpless, like there was no joy in life, or like something bad and scary was right around the corner. I don't fully understand why I felt this way. My parents loved me and my other five siblings very much, and my family was my joy in life. I could, and I have in the past, speculated as to what was going on with my mental health and what the reasons were. But at the end of the day, all I really know for sure is that I struggled from a very young age. As a teenager, these feelings amped up and I became suicidal. I remember several times driving in my car with my windows down and the music blaring, which was the only place that I really felt free to express my emotions. And I remember crying in the car with tears just running down my face, praying and begging God, please just give me peace and joy. I just want inner peace and joy. I'm tired of all the mental and emotional turmoil. And I said, I can handle anything that life throws at me if I just have inner peace and joy. Then, at the age of 19, I was miraculously healed of depression. This was a healing that I participated in. There was mindset work as part of this healing that I performed, although I didn't understand the mechanisms of what I was doing at the time. And I remember waking up the next day and feeling peace for the first time in my life. I wrote in my journal that it was like the sky had been cloudy my entire life, and now the sun had finally come out and I could see clearly. I now know that this was my first experience with what is commonly called manifestation, or what I like to call magic or alchemy. I used ancient alchemical techniques to transform the base emotions of fear and sadness into a higher state of consciousness. And in that process, I effortlessly manifested a healing. For a couple years after that, I lived in a positive state of mind. I repeated the process that I had used to heal myself of depression and healed myself of severe irritable bowel syndrome and then chronic collapsed arches in my feet. I met my husband, made huge decisions with my career, and moved across country on a whim without feeling a bit of anxiety. And I remember thinking during that process, nothing can touch me anymore. Nothing can disturb my peace anymore. And yet, in a few short weeks, I started a new job in over the phone customer service. Dealing with angry customers all day long was a new challenge, powerful enough to bring the anxiety back into my life. My depression didn't come back, but over the next few years, life was a real struggle for me. I hated my job and was constantly anxious about having to go back. And I never dealt with the root of this anxiety, so it snowballed in my life, even after I quit that job. My husband and I continued to struggle in our marriage. We struggled financially. We lost our car. We lost 2 apartments. We had to live with family and finally ended up in low-income housing, feeding our 3 kids by that time off of food stamps. It felt like we would never be able to provide adequately for our children. It felt like we were never going to get out of the grind of struggle. It felt like we were never going to be happy. And life continued on like this for about 8 years. Struggle to survive, anxiety about everything, insecurity, lack, inner turmoil. And then I ran across Joe Dispenza online. For anyone not familiar with Dr. Joe, he teaches powerful techniques for manifestation and transformation of consciousness from both a scientific and a metaphysical perspective. I began binge listening to his lectures, and for the first time, I began to understand what had actually happened in my initial healings from depression, IBS, and collapsed arches. I began to understand that I had actually healed myself and how I had done so. And I said to myself, I transformed my consciousness once, I can do it again. And this time I will do it so intentionally that I will change absolutely everything. And so I wrote out a plan for myself. I included morning affirmations, nighttime sleep hypnosis. I wrote out 10 goals for the next year that I read aloud in present tense every morning. And most importantly, I spent 30 to 60 minutes in a theta brain state in meditation every single morning, imagining in vivid detail everything about how I wanted my life to look, who I was as a person, what kind of character qualities I had, what state of consciousness I had, what the house I wanted to live in looked like, what the property looked like, what I wanted to be doing for a career, what opportunities I wanted to provide for my children. And every single thing on that list I manifested. Immediately within the first several months, I began manifesting a couple of ministries that I'd wanted to start. One, to deliver homemade bread to the low income community where I lived on Christmas Eve, called Christmas Bread for Parkdale. And two, a clothing ministry for low income people called Overflow. Next, I manifested a ton of opportunities and experiences for my children. I created a beautiful community of family and particularly friends. I manifested the best friend that I've ever had in my entire life. I manifested so many little things that I can't even remember them all now, but I got so good at manifesting that I could just easily slip in to the state of mind that I needed to be in to manifest anytime I wanted something. So, for instance, I remember walking into my mother in law's home and seeing all the houseplants that she was surrounded by, and I love plants. So, rather than going into a state of need and want, like I wish I had houseplants in my house, I would love to have all these houseplants. Why don't I have them? I want to get them. I would instantly and effortlessly go into a state of how would it feel to already have that? Yes, I am already that person that has a house filled with houseplants. And within a couple of weeks, I had a house filled with houseplants. It just became very easy for me. And so it's no surprise that over the course of the next couple of years, I also manifested my dream career, which is what I'm doing on YouTube with content creation. And a couple of years following that, I manifested the exact dream home that I was visualizing when I did those meditations. Exact minus a couple of details. I wanted my house to have a fireplace. It doesn't have a fireplace, but almost everything is on point. Once again, when I was on the high of doing these meditations, I felt so expansive, so fearless, so powerful that I thought, surely this is my permanent state. I'm going to live the rest of my life in this state. I didn't think that anything could touch me there, but I was wrong. In the summer of 2019, I got hit with some scary and stressful news. Somebody that I was close to was diagnosed with a scary health condition, and another person that I was close to experienced a life-threatening condition that put them in the hospital for a couple of months. At that point in my life, I had gotten really proficient with working with higher vibrational positive energies, but I had not yet learned how to actually deal with the lower base energies of fear, anxiety, and so on. And instead, what I had been doing is just suppressing those things and moving instantly into a higher vibrational state of being. I learned the hard way that that can only last for so long. Over the next few years, I spiraled mentally and emotionally again. I went through public deconstruction during that time and I lost my entire community. My best friend that I told you about earlier had ended up moving away because her family was part of the military. COVID happened and I was isolated just as everyone else was during that time. And I didn't deal with the stress of that situation well because I hadn't learned how to actually feel those emotions that had been held in my nervous system since the time I was a child. I developed an anxiety disorder and a panic disorder during that time because I felt so isolated, so lost. And part of this was probably due to the fact that I also had a severe, undiagnosed sleeping disorder that was causing me to have intense brain fog during the day to the point where I was struggling to stay awake. My O2 was dropping at night down into the 80s, and I had no idea what was going on. I just knew I was exhausted. I was lost in a brain fog, and I was overwhelmed with anxiety during that time. Now, I am grateful for the experience because it forced me to come face to face with those lower base energies of the lower three energy centers and learn how to work with them, figure out how to alchemize them. I did it because I had to, and I found out that I could. I found out that I could take the darkest and scariest emotions and alchemize them into unconditional love. Since then, I've faced challenge after challenge. Another cross country move, huge challenges in relationships, the passing of my emotional support animal, my beloved precious cat, who was like a child to me. And now my life is more of a contrast because I'm still going through a lot of upheaval in my life currently. I experience the anxiety and the fear along with the peace and the bliss. And what I found is that I can be a container for all of it, that I can constantly work alchemy on the lower emotions to power higher states of consciousness, that I can contain all of it at once and be larger than it and be at peace. Putting into practice all the tools that I've learned throughout the years, how to work with lower frequency emotions, how to transmute them into love, how to balance my lower 3 energy centers and get the energy moving through them freely. And combining that with the cognitive techniques that I learned years earlier, how to rewire the subconscious mind for success, inspiration, joy, abundance, how to direct the energy in my body with conscious thought, how to use tools like gratitude, imagination, and intention to consciously create my life, even surrounded by all of the contrast. I've been amazed at the state of bliss that I've been able to achieve while in the midst of the normal struggle of life, while in the midst of the upheaval. And this, to me, is true alchemical power. It's being able to identify as the divine being that you are and contain the positive and negative energies of life and still experience bliss. To feel bliss while you're also feeling fear. To feel peace and security while you're also experiencing upheaval in life. And I'm still in the process of learning, but I am learning how to embrace the whole human experience. That I don't have to be perfect or never feel sad or anxious, panic, or fear in order to also experience intense bliss and joy. During this process, my intuitive abilities have blown open as well. I find it easier to receive intuitive guidance from the other side. One night a few months ago, I was sitting on my couch, pondering my experiences of the last few years. And I said to myself, my life has taken so many interesting and unexpected turns. But what is the reason I'm really here? What is my actual purpose, and am I fulfilling it? The question I hear so many times from so many of you. How do I know what my purpose is? And how do I know if I'm really fulfilling it? Is my purpose a job? Is it a career? What is it? The answer came back very simply. You're an alchemist. You transmute energies. Your purpose, my purpose, is to work behind the scenes, transmuting base energies into higher states of consciousness. That's what I was told. And anything that I choose to do on top of that, whether it's content creation, my YouTube channel, or whatever, is simply an added bonus, and I have the freedom to choose how I want to create in the world. But my main core purpose is to transmute energies. Because every time that one of us transmutes a base energy into a higher state of consciousness, it creates a blueprint that makes it easier for others to do the same, because that process goes into the collective consciousness and other people have access to it because our consciousness is all connected, because we are all part of one being. And anytime we transmute our own energy, we also transmute some of the collective energy, lightening the load a little bit for everyone else. And so I have decided that it is finally time for me to share what I've learned. I've been holding back because I still feel like I'm in progress. I still have mornings where I deal with anxiety. I still deal with the stress of life. I don't always get it perfect, but I have learned and experienced so much over the years. And honestly, I think we're all going to be in process for our entire lives. None of us is ever going to get there to where we have nothing else to learn. And so it's time for me to stop holding back in fear and to step out and share what I've learned and what I have experienced. And because of that, I have created a 5-day free activation that I am going to be sharing with you. On day 1, I'm going to offer a teaching. On day 2, we're going to do a powerful meditation to activate our divine feminine energy. On day 3, we're going to do a powerful exercise to activate our divine masculine energy. On day 4, we're going to take some time for reflection, connecting with each other, submitting questions, because on day 5, I'm going to go live with all of you to talk about the experiences that you've had and to answer your questions. I am so looking forward to this. I would love to see as many of you there as possible. Please check the description box or click here for the sign up link to sign up for this free 5-day activation. It's time, guys. We, as so many people that I interview speak of, we are in an evolutionary shift right now, and it's time. We are in the thick of transmuting these base energies into higher states of consciousness as humanity goes through this collective awakening. And it's time for us to talk about this, and it's time for us to share about this, and it's time for us to come together and do this together. And that's what this free 5-day activation is really about. It's about having a community to do these things with, to share techniques, to share experiences, to feel like we're not alone in this, what can be really intense time. So please sign up at the link. Please check the description box for the link. I would love to see you there. We're going to be starting Monday morning, April 15th. See you there. Thank you for watching and listening. Your views, likes, comments, and shares truly make the biggest difference in supporting this channel. Don't forget to check the show notes for all the links to today's guest, as well as my links. You'll find me on social media at Love Covered Life, my website, lovecoveredlife.com, and the Be a Guest link for anybody who would like to be a guest on the channel. I have great news. Love Covered Life podcast is coming available on audio podcast. You can find it wherever you listen to your audio podcasts.